Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Arc, episode 9. I am Manoli,
And I'm Montana.
and we're happy to be here with you guys today. Reminder as always, Beyond the Arc is a part of the Yankee and the Brit Sports Group. Make sure, if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing there on the bottom left hand of your screen there if you're watching us live on YouTube or watching us later on YouTube. Feel free to subscribe. You can also check out our previous podcasts on YouTube, Spotify, Twitch, wherever podcasts are, we're probably there. So make sure you guys are tuning in on that. So Montana, by maybe as early as Thursday, we might have a new NBA champion, but a lot's happened in the last week since we've been on. Here we are at episode 9 already, and we've missed, we had 3 games in between, including a good one last night. But just to recap before we go forward, Game 3, Boston took that game in Boston, 116-100. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Marcus Smart each had at least 24 points apiece. Golden State went cold in the fourth quarter, and Boston pulled away at home to take a 2-1 series lead. Then in Game 4, Steph Curry probably had his NBA Finals signature moment game with a 43-point effort to lead the Golden State Warriors to a 107-97 victory in Boston, evening up the series at 2-2. And then last night, we had Golden State winning at home at the Chase Center, 104-94. The early moments of the game looked like Brick City, USA. A lot of missed shots. Looked like one of my Monday night pickup games after having like a month or two off, not being able to find the basket. But even Steph Curry had a hard time. Montana went 0 for 9 from 3. Last time he missed it, he had a game where he didn't hit a 3-point. I don't think he'd graduated high school yet. That's how long it's been. So Golden State goes to Boston on Thursday with a 3-2 series lead. How do you think Game 6 is going to play out, and how do you see the rest of the series going? Is it Golden State's to win, or do you think we're going to a Game 7?
I really want to say it's Golden State's to win, but I think when you're playing in Boston, that is a tough venue to play in, and they definitely want to keep the series alive. Tatum and Brown have had really, really good series. They've been really putting up pretty consistent numbers, especially, I mean, their numbers dropped off a little bit, but they've been keeping up with the Warriors. The only thing about the Warriors is I just think they're a more complete team than the Celtics. I think the Celtics definitely belong in this series, but I think this Warriors team, it's theirs to win or theirs to lose, because I think if the Warriors can have a game where they stay as hot as I know they can, there's no chance the Celtics win. So if the Celtics have any chance of winning, it would be squeaking that game 6 in potentially. But I see the Warriors finishing it on Thursday. I just don't think that this Celtics team has enough in them to take this team down personally. So I would say I've got the Warriors taking care of business and winning it in 6, but I could see a Game 7, especially where they're playing Game 6 at. People don't realize how much the atmosphere of an arena can affect a game. I mean, it can change a game, and that's why you want those
Momentum,
stands.
yeah.
Absolutely, and that's why you want those stands packed, because there's a great chance you could flip flop how that game is going to go with by being there. So I do have the Warriors winning it next game, but I can see it going to 7, especially with where they're playing at on Thursday. So I think next week, the Warriors, I truly believe, will be NBA champions. So that's my pick. And again, it's not just because I'm wearing this and I don't want the Celtics to get number 18. I really don't think they can pull it off this season.
Well, I agree with a lot of what you said. A couple points. I mean, you mentioned, the atmosphere of a specific arena. I mean, we talked about it when the playoffs first started. There is nothing like an NBA arena during playoff time. The intensity of the crowd, especially when it gets to, the NBA Finals and the championship's on the line. And, the Boston fans are trying to do their best, Philly fan impersonation, trying to go head to head with them for who's the toughest fan base in sports, I don't know if you want to say the worst fan base in sports, according to some, but toughest fan base in sports, right? I still think Philly's got it over Boston. I don't remember the last time Boston booed Santa Claus, but that's a different story. I said it last week. I had the Warriors in 6. Like you, I can see a situation where Boston comes out firing, and maybe the Warriors are, hopped up on champagne wishes and caviar dreams, thinking, okay, all we got to do is just show up, and we're going to win Game 7. They let that slip away. I can see it. I had Warriors in 6, but I'm going to turn heel. I am going to predict it goes to a Game 7. Now, how confident am I in that prediction on a scale of 1 to 10? Honestly, -3, but I just want to be different. So I think it's going to go back to the Bay on Sunday night, but I still think the Warriors take care of business in 7. Selfishly, I wanted this to go to 7. If I had to put money on it, I'd say Warriors in 6, just like I have all along. But just to be difficult, I'm going to say Warriors in 7.
And I can see that. And also, I mean, Warriors have blown leads before. So, and they've blown leads that were they've blown 3-1. Who's to say they won't blow 3-2? I mean, I don't see that happening because this team is not led by a hungry. When LeBron is hungry like he was for that championship, which I don't think we've seen LeBron that hungry since. When you have put one of the best players in the NBA and they're that hungry, you're probably going to pull it off. Like, I don't see any of these Celtics players. Jason Tatum, I think, wants to win, but it's not the same as that Cavs team was when they went up against the Warriors. Like, that was a whole different thing. And this Celtics team is strong, and I think we'll see them back at least in the conference finals next season. But I don't think they have what it takes this time. But again, I mean, the Warriors have had really cold games. Even some of their best players like Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, they've both been cold. We've seen Steph choke in the playoffs, specifically the finals before. So I don't think it's
Yeah.
enough for this Celtics team to come all the way back, but I could see them dropping the 6th game. I could see the Warriors dropping that 6th game. And if they drop that 6th game and the Celtics really believe that they can do it, we could have a really, really, really competitive Game 7 on our hands.
Yeah.
Personally, I think 6, just because we've seen Game 6 Klay Thompson before. Maybe we'll see that
Game 6
again.
Klay. Yeah.
It's special. It's different. It really is. I mean, he comes in clutch. He's not came in clutch these playoffs, in my opinion, yet either. I mean, his game's kind of improved. Yet the last 2 games, he put up a few more points than the first few, but still, it's not the Klay Thompson that other teams fear. So coming back from injury, we touched on that last time, but yeah, I think the Warriors will take care of it no matter what. But I could see this Celtics team rallying and taking Game 6, but it'll take everything they've got just to win that 6th game, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody's counted out the one reason why I think it could go to a Game 7. How I jokingly think it's going to go 7 is everybody's counted out the Celtics before. I mean, take the Bucks series for example. I mean, they went out and beat the defending champs. Actually, that was in Boston, but they beat the defending champs in a Game 7. They beat the Miami Heat, the number 1 seed in the East, in a Game 7. So I mean, even where everyone had Milwaukee or Miami or who have you, the Boston's come and surprised everybody. So I think it can go to a 7. I just have a hard time believing that Boston can win a Game 7 in Chase Center, but we'll see. Time will tell. Well, another storyline, and especially once the finals wrap up, is going to be who the NBA Finals MVP is going to be for this year. And, a lot's been made of Steph Curry not having won NBA Finals MVP through the first Warriors 3 championships over this run since 2015. Montana, who do you see as the NBA Finals MVP to this point? Do you think it's Steph Curry's to lose, or can somebody sneak in and kind of take that mantle away from him?
I think it's Steph Curry's to lose because he really has been pretty consistent in these finals. Has he played great every time? No, but he's stayed decently consistent. If every single performance was like, Game 5, then there's no way he would get that. But first of all, it's Curry. It's Curry, and I think that frankly, I think that AD deserved the Finals MVP over LeBron when they won. So sometimes if you have the right name, especially in those situations, you'll kind of get it regardless. But I mean, we saw Iggy win it. So you never really know what's going to happen in the finals. There could be role players that put up better performances than the stars, and I do think we've seen some of those role players for the Warriors play more consistent than some of their starters and some of their stars. But I still think it's Steph Curry's to lose because up until the last game, he was playing pretty well, and honestly, he's disappeared in finals before. So Steph arguably is having one of his better finals like performances because we've really seen him drop off in the finals before and just in the playoffs. So I think that it's his to lose. I wouldn't be shocked if they gave it to someone else, but as of now, I can't see who else they would give it to for the way Steph Curry has played pretty well and also just who he is for the team and for the league. So it's kind of a name game, obviously, with Iggy winning it. It's not just a name game because, Iggy's a great player, but he's not who you think would have won finals MVP, just because of who else they had. So I'm
Sure.
giving it to Steph, but I think that maybe another player could sneak it in there and get it, but I think Steph has it for sure.
Yeah, I think look, up to date, even with last night's, 16.8 assists, 16 points and 8 assists, those are still solid numbers. Those are numbers too low for Steph Curry, though. Even despite that game 5, he's averaging over 30 points for the series. And I think he scored up until yesterday, I think he scored at least 29 points in each of the first 4 games, where he's getting, granted, balanced efforts from everybody else. When you have Klay Thompson contributing, no breakout games from the rest of these guys I'm about to mention, but Klay Thompson, right? You have Jordan Poole. Sometimes a pool party happens, sometimes it doesn't over the course of the series. You might have some role players like an Otto Porter Jr., but he's not in for Finals MVP. The one guy to keep an eye on, if it doesn't go to Steph Curry, someone who I think can sneak in the back door and take away that Finals MVP from him. Even though I do agree with you, I think it's Steph Curry's to lose. Keep an eye on Andrew Wiggins. He's had a pretty solid last 3 games. Even last night, I think he had 26 points and 13 rebounds. In game 4, he had a career high 16 rebounds. And let's not forget, he is the primary defender on Jason Tatum, who, Jason Tatum's still putting up numbers, but he's shooting 37% from the field in the series, right? And Andrew Wiggins is starting to make an impact. He had a couple of nice dunks last night, made his presence felt, led the Warriors in scoring. And, for Steph Curry to get Finals MVP, granted, there's only 11 voters that, voted for the NBA Finals MVP, which I just learned recently. I was shocked that it was that small of a number. Steph Curry is going to have a good game. I don't think he has to have a great game, but I think he's going to have a really solid game, and the Warriors win it on Thursday night for him to get that Finals MVP trophy. If he struggles like he did yesterday, Andrew Wiggins has another solid performance and continues to play good defense. I shouldn't say good, great defense on Tatum and Brown. I can see a scenario where they give it to Andrew Wiggins, and I feel for Steph. I hope he gets it. To be perfectly honest, I'm a Steph Curry fan, but other than Steph Curry, it very well could be Andrew Wiggins, who's surprising everybody.
Yeah, and I agree. Andrew Wiggins was a player that had so much hype when he came to the league and then slowly started losing that. But we're seeing that it may not have been him as a player, but the teams that he was playing for. That he had sometimes we see those situational things. We've seen that in all sports. We saw that just this last NFL season with Stafford going and winning a Super Bowl after playing in
Good
Detroit for
call.
so many years. And then we saw him go to the right team and make an impact. So I'm going to say that it's obviously different sport, different situation. But I'm going to say Andrew Wiggins is the same type of player where it was a situational thing, and now he's really showing us, what he's worth on that team, because that Golden State team would not be where they are without him, I don't think, because he's really stepped up some games, not even just in the finals, but the whole playoffs and the whole season. We've seen him step up more than once. So I think Wiggins, I wouldn't call him a star, but I would call him a player that has star potential. I don't know. He's been in the league a few years now, so but I definitely think that that's a star potential type of player who will really, I think he'll be with the Warriors for a long time. I think that they're going to keep that core of those younger guys. Again, he's not incredibly young still, but you have Poole, you have Gary Payton II. We have all of these players that are younger and that I think that they're going to really prioritize keeping and using for the future, because they all have done so much for this Warriors team. And I don't think we see them in the finals without the 3 players that I just mentioned, with
Yeah.
Gary Payton II,
Yeah.
Jordan Poole, and Andrew Wiggins. So shout out to Andrew Wiggins for finally, showing the people that didn't think he could do it that he could. I always thought he was talented, even when he wasn't putting up the numbers people expected. But I'm glad he's showing more doubters what's up now. It's nice to
Yeah.
see that.
Yeah, former number one overall pick, uber talented coming out of Kansas. I think he played the 1 year over for the Kansas Jayhawks in college. Was in Minnesota, teamed up with Cat there. Um, Tasted the playoffs once when Derrick Rose was with the Timberwolves, Tom Thibodeau was coaching up there, Jimmy Butler, those guys. So it's hey, Andrew Wiggins has entered the chat. Welcome to the spotlight, sir. First time All Star. Um, then again, that was a combination of the fan vote and coaches vote. But then again, these are the same Golden State Warriors fans that once tried to vote in Zaza Pachulia into the All-Star game, and thank God that didn't happen. Although that would have been pretty entertaining. One last note on Andre Iguodala, former Finals MVP. We'll talk a little bit about Andre Iguodala later on. I'm still trying to figure out how he got Finals MVP that year over Steph. I mean, solid role player, above average role player, I should say. Solid career, but they said that he, played some pretty good defense. All he did was hold LeBron James to above his career scoring average and almost a triple double, and still somehow got NBA Finals MVP. But anyway, neither here nor there. You made a point of an interesting point about who the Warriors are going to prioritize coming in the offseason. We can save that for the NBA hot stove, if you will. The Warriors are already paying uber luxury tax, and it's going to be very interesting to see how they're going to figure out a way to keep Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, even a guy like Kevon Looney. Maybe they let him walk, but they'll be paying $11 billion in the luxury tax, so they end up keeping all those guys. But we'll see. One of those guys that they may let walk in a couple years, who knows? That's my hot take right now, is Draymond Green. And we talked about Draymond Green at length last week in our episode 8. He's been averaging almost as many points as fouls over the course of the series. In fact, he has one more point than number of fouls in the series. He's fouled out 3 times over the course of the series. We talked about some of the intangibles and things you won't find in a stat sheet on what he brings to the table and how he impacts the Warriors. But he has not had the greatest of series here against Boston. He's been, taking some brunt in the media for, questioning whether or not he's spending more time on his own podcast than focusing on the finals themselves and trying to get another ring for the Warriors. He's shot atrociously. Even his mom has come out and had to defend him on Twitter. And if your mom is coming out on defending you on Twitter, number one, at least you know she loves you. But number two, you must be doing something wrong. Montana, is Draymond Green helping or hurting the Warriors more in this series?
So in my personal opinion, the last 3 finals appearances that Draymond has had, which would be Cleveland, Toronto, and now against the Celtics, his stats have been all over the place. And he'll put up a 10, 10, and 10 night like he did against the Raptors, and then the next night he'll go 5, 2, 0, and 3. So it's like he's always been a sporadic player that puts up consistent numbers at some points and then just throws that away and goes like 2, 3 points and doesn't have much of an impact. I think we're starting to see more of the Draymond Green that isn't having an impact. And I think we've seen that throughout the finals, especially. He's made a couple of good plays and done a couple of good things. But like, if we sat here and counted, the pros and cons of him during this playoff series, we would have more cons than pros by far. And not only is he not playing quite as well now, he's also going on social media and doing more than he ever has before by going out and on his podcast and even just on just other social media posts that he's involved in. And he's talking a lot, but he's not really walking the walk anymore. He used to talk the talk and walk the walk a little bit at least, but I would say he's not doing that so much anymore. And I also don't know if you need a player like that on your team. I mean, he had a specific role on that Warriors team, but if I'm the Warriors, I'm moving past that role. I don't think they need the role that he played on that team anymore. They need that role from a player that can put up better numbers. He is that. He's an enforcer, and he really is. He gets in your head, and he's all pest. We talk about the all pest team. He'd be on there for sure, without a
Yes,
doubt.
he would.
He'd be on the all
Absolutely.
time team. He'd be on the all time team, no doubt. So he plays that part really well. But the reason that it used to work was because he'd also put up numbers. Now he's really just on that all pest team, and he's not putting up the numbers that Warriors fans are probably used to him putting up, because even though he's always been sporadic and all over the place in series, we've never seen him be this low in his career. And if we've seen him bounce back and have a great game the next game. And he's not had one notable performance in this series. I don't think. I really wouldn't say he's had any. He's made certain moves and done certain things that have helped them in the short run, but in the long run, I think it's time for him to be done. I think it's time for him to go. Get him on a team where he can just retire. I mean, I don't think, get him on a team. Hey, I guess since the Lakers seem to be a retirement home, send him to us. We'll take him. I mean, we're the retirement home of the NBA, so send him to us and we'll take him. But no, I think that they need to move forward, and I think they need to focus on having a younger core. I think instead of prioritizing some of those vets, obviously Clay and Steph will most likely not get moved because they're Clay and Steph. They're gonna move when they
No.
want to. They're gonna move when they want to. If they do, I don't think Steph will ever move. I think Clay will though. I think we'll see Clay on another team eventually. But I don't. Draymond, it's time for him to move. I say you keep those vets, and because it's crazy to say this, but I mean Clay and Steph are vets now, especially Steph. You keep those players that are in that veteran role, but still putting up numbers, and then you bring in more guys, younger and just whoever else. But I don't think Draymond is that guy anymore. I never thought he really was. He did make an impact, but I think his impact has gone from like here down to here, and then now it's gone even down to here. Because even in
Mm.
Toronto, even when they played Toronto, his numbers were not great. We saw him start to decline back in 2018, to be honest. 2018,
Well,
19.
yeah. Charles Barkley said it best. He got himself another triple single. He is the master of the triple singles, right? Look, when you put Draymond Green's name with, if I had to make a list of you know who to keep and who to not keep, right, and who to cut. If you have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole, and then you put Draymond Green, if you're putting it numbers aside and talent and things of that nature, like who are you paying this money to? Yeah, Draymond Green's the one that you would cut, right? Most people would do that. I Here's the thing that's head scratching to me about Draymond Green, right? When the Warriors first started their ascent, they started becoming good and started making playoff teams and even started going to the finals and winning their first, championship and even that 73-9 team, right? He was averaging double-figure points. He was a decent shooter from three-point line. I think he was, at one point he shot somewhere between 35 to 38%. Clay to the Bucks. That's an idea, Jay. I like that. Um, it wasn't like the guy was, useless offensively, right? From a shooting standpoint, a scoring standpoint, right? I just don't understand what happened. Now he came out and said it, and this could be, covering up the lack of declining skill, whatever, from a offensive standpoint. But he came out and said, "Listen, when I have two of the greatest shooters all time, and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, why the hell would I shoot the ball?" And you know what? He's right about that. I would rather have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson shoot the ball 100 times out of 100, no matter if this is 2015 Draymond Green or this is 2022 Draymond Green. Um, we talked about the podcast, we talked about the media stuff. When he has gone out in a couple of these last few games, the games were close, and then the Warriors would make a run. They hit a couple threes and just stick a fork in the Celtics. And I've noticed that they've done a little bit better with Draymond off the court. Now, the NBA recently in the last few years have come out with a plus minus, kind of like what hockey's done, right? Plus minus, how the team has done with that player on the court. And surprisingly enough, if you look at the box scores night in and night out, Draymond Green is a plus player. Now, that might have more to do with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole, others, Andrew Wiggins on that team, but he's definitely making some sort of impact. And there's other pundits that said that he's washed up. I don't think he's washed up. It's head scratching to me why all of a sudden he can't shoot. And when he does shoot from the outside, it looks like I don't know what it looks like. It's just it doesn't look pretty. That's for sure for the most part. Now occasionally he does hit a three here and there, but regardless, I think that this version of Draymond Green is reminding me of the Dennis Rodman. Not saying he's Dennis Rodman or anywhere close to Dennis Rodman, but he's reminding me of a similar type role that Dennis Rodman played in the last two Bulls championship runs, primarily against the Utah Jazz. Dennis Rodman wasn't putting up great numbers. He never put up good scoring numbers in his time in Chicago. Even the rebounding numbers were down, but a lot of time he was the guy that had to, defend Karl Malone a lot and bang and try to, harass him and force him into some bad shots. I think that's what Draymond Green is out to do here. He's out there to move the ball around on offense, make sure that there's movement if the Warriors get stagnant. That's very valuable. Make sure they're spaced. Very valuable. He's still getting some rebounds. He's still passing the ball, getting his assists, but he does look a little bit a step slow. Now, granted, 23, 24, 25-year-old Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum could do that to a lot of guys in the league. But, I do say that Draymond Green is still helping the Warriors more than hurting, but man, it's close. We talked about the fouls and the points being right there. That's kind of how I feel about Draymond Green here. So it'll be curious to see what type of game he has in Game 6. He's fouled out in 3 of the 5 NBA Finals games here, but Thursday night will be pretty interesting.
Absolutely, and time will tell. I mean, maybe he'll turn it around and have at least one good game, but I don't know. I mean, it's kind of, we have one game left. Well, no, I say that we have one game left.
Maybe.
I think we have one game left. We have 2 games at the most. There's not much more he can do to redeem himself in that time. Unless he puts up a triple double with 30 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. Maybe then
everybody will say, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah, pretty much his whole career, honestly, because he's never put up numbers that he's never been a real. He's put up numbers scoring, but he's never been looked at as their number one scoring option, of course. But I think whenever they do look at him for that, he's either bricking it or it's just not. He's not. I mean, he doesn't always brick. He's decently consistent, but we've seen him put up some pretty bad bricks throughout his career. And I mean, whenever you see him try to shoot a 3, which we've not seen that now, but back when they had Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, they'd usually be ahead, 20, 30 points. So you might see Draymond Green shooting one of the ugliest 3s you've ever seen. But
little duck set shot, yeah.
He'd make it sometimes, but I mean, this is not.
He used to make them.
Yeah, he used to. Yeah, he did.
I don't know. Well, enough about Draymond Green for now. I'm sure we'll talk about him in another 5 minutes or so. We'll move on to our favorite game that is sweeping YouTube and the internets. It's another edition of NBA Player Or. Each of the past, I will say 7 or 8 weeks, Montana, I give Montana a list of 5 names, and he has to tell me whether or not they are an NBA player or a name from some other profession that I choose. Last week, Montana get 4 out of 5, taking his season total. I believe I have this right. 22 of 30 correct. So I think about that. That's like a 76.9 or 70-some% winning percentage on Montana's point. They say C's get degrees, so you're on track here, Montana. Definitely a winning record. So anyway, most of you that have watched Well Beyond the Arc since we've installed this game know how the game is played. But for you first-timers, we'll give you a little intro. If the name that I give Montana is answered incorrectly, you will hear this sound. I just realized I did that backwards. And if Montana answers the question correctly, you will hear this sound. Victory! Thank you once again, Johnny Drama, for joining us. All right. This week's NBA player or category is going to be NBA player or former Major League Baseball manager. Now, I don't know how much of a baseball fan you are, Montana. And, baseball has been around since the 1880s. Who knows how far back I went to get some of these names.
That's true.
But
I think I'll be able to tell if it's a name from the early 1900s. I should be able to get it, but who knows? Maybe not.
All right. Well, hey, it's a game of chance, 50-50 shot here. So, without further ado, let's hit it. Get right to it. The first name, Montana, is this gentleman an NBA player or a former Major League Baseball manager? The name is Billy Hunter.
Baseball manager.
Victory! That's probably the second most confident you've been in answering a question on an NBA player. Well, off to a good start. Billy Hunter, yes, and a former MLB manager, managed the Texas Rangers in 2 seasons from 1977 to 1978, in both those seasons. Record of 146 and 108 with 6 career ejections. It's cool that we can find that stat and how many ejections they've had. So All right, 1 for 1. Name number 2. Is this gentleman an NBA player or former Major League Baseball manager? The name is Jim Mcmillan. Jim Mcmillan.
I'm gonna stick with baseball manager.
And you should have went with NBA player. Jim Mcmillan, former NBA player, played in the league from 1970 through 1979. Was an NBA champion with the Los Angeles Lakers in 1972, I believe. Played for the Lakers, Buffalo Braves, New York Knicks, and Portland Trail Blazers, averaging 13.8 points per game in 631 career games. None of these 3.4 point per game guys on the list today, Montana, but it's all right. Get back on the winning track here with this next one. Question number 3, or name number 3 rather. Is this a former NBA player, current NBA player, or a former Major League Baseball manager? The name is Mickey Johnson. Mickey Johnson.
I'm gonna go. Well, I guess I've only said this one the whole time so far, but I'm gonna stick with baseball manager.
No, Mickey Johnson. Played in the NBA from 1974 to 1986, averaging 14.1 points per game in 904 career games. Played with the Bulls, Pacers, Bucks, Nets, and Golden State Warriors. All right, 1 out of 3. Let's get back to 500, shall we? Name number 4. Is this a NBA player or former MLB manager? The name is Johnny Keane. Johnny Keane.
I'm gonna stick with baseball manager.
Victory!
And that was a good choice. Johnny Keane, managed in the 1960s, managed the St. Louis Cardinals and the New York Yankees. Career record of 317, 249, 11 ejections. No one cares about that, but they do care, especially in St. Louis, about the World Series in 1964 that he led them to. So, no slouch, Johnny Keane. All right, 2 out of 4. Let's end this one. Name number 5. Let's end on a good note. The name, and tell me if it's an NBA player or former MLB manager, is Billy Thompson. Billy Thompson.
I'm gonna go. Ooh, this one's a tough one. I could see it going either way. Baseball manager.
Oh no, Billy Thompson. It does sound like a baseball manager's name, to be fair. That one's kind of mean. But former NBA player, played in the league from 86 to 92 with the Lakers, Miami Heat, and Golden State Warriors. 8 points per game in 300 career games. Was a member of the inaugural Miami Heat squad in 1988 and 89. So 2 out of 5. Montana, better luck next week. That brings your total to 24 out of 35. Still getting more of them right than you're getting them wrong, but better luck next week.
Yeah, I mean was that my worst one, or did I have one when I only got one right? I feel like I've had one worse than this.
I have to go back and check. I don't know.
Who knows?
Well, you know what? We need to hire a stat boy to get that for us. That's what we need to do. We
There we
need an
go.
intern. We need a well beyond the arc intern. So if anybody out there is interested in being our well beyond the arc intern, comment on the links below, and we'll go from there. Well, speaking of guys that are playing like interns, the Boston Celtics. Oh, there you go.
There we go. Well,
and for the record, Jay is not our intern. He is not our stat boy. He's just knows the facts behind the scenes there. All right. The Boston Celtics have turned the NBA Finals into the Boston Massacre in ways. They've blown away leads. They've and blown away opportunities in each of the last 2 games here against the Golden State Warriors, and they're starting to look a little rattled, Montana. I mean, you see them chirping at the refs. Granted, there's been some questionable calls here and there, but there have been questionable calls on both sides of the ball. Ime Udoka is spending a lot of time. The Celtics coach, Ime Udoka, also known as Nia Long's husband, has been spending a lot of time arguing with the referees. Even in one strange play last night after a dead ball going into timeout, Jason Tatum tried to put up a practice shot like most players do at a dead ball, and Draymond Green and Gary Payton second just would not let him get a shot off, let alone block the shot. They just wouldn't let him. So Jason Tatum took his ball and went home. Even Steph Curry is trolling the Boston fans in his post-game presser, saying Ayesha Curry can cook, is what his T-shirt said after a couple of the Boston eateries had said the Ayesha Curry put signs that Ayesha Curry can't cook. Neither here nor there. Montana, are the Boston Celtics starting to wane down mentally in this series?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of that has to do with this is a lot of these guys' first time in the finals. We see a lot. I mean, they're two young stars. This is their first time with Brown and Tatum. They've never been to the finals. There's that really cool video of Jaylen Brown. I think it was in 2016. He was at one of the Warriors finals games talking about how he just couldn't wait to make the finals and this and that. And that's so cool to see them there now. That is awesome. I wish they played for any other team because I might root for the guys if they weren't played for the Celtics. So, but I mean, the Lakers never even apparently looked into. Jason Tatum said they never even looked at him. So maybe that whatever. But I think that they are definitely getting worn down because even the vets that they have don't have a lot of finals experience. They don't really have a team that is incredibly well-rounded with finals experience. And I think that's the biggest part of the reason that they're breaking down is just because of the lack of experience. We've seen it before with NBA teams that have a great regular season. Maybe they have a great playoffs, but the finals are different than the rest of the playoffs. It's a whole different level of intensity, and there's a lot more on the line. And I don't think the Celtics team is ready to provide that yet. I don't think they're quite there yet. I don't think that they need to have like a huge change and a huge different players come in. They've got a good core, but I don't think at this point, I don't think they're quite ready for that finals experience to go any way other than it is. So I think they're definitely, we can see them on the court. They're starting to really, really, really go down a little bit and look way less like they did the rest of the playoffs. So I just think there's definitely a strain. And also, I mean, playing where they've played when they've had to play the Warriors at home in Chase Center, that is not an easy place to win at, which
No.
I don't think any arena in the finals would be easy to win at, but that would be one of the ones. I mean, as annoying as Golden State fans can be, they do have a lot of loyal fans. Now, when Steph and Clay retire or leave, maybe some of them will leave too, but as of now, they have a dedicated fan base. So I would say that there's a lot of factors going into it, but it's not lack of skill by any of these Celtics players. I think it's just lack of experience on this stage.
Yeah, no, and you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say it's not. They have talented and able players. They didn't get to the NBA Finals because they suck. That's not the case. We've talked about their young core, and they got a couple grizzled vets, specifically Al Horford, right? Who's still doing it at age 36. But no, this is a case of lack of experience. The Warriors have been in the finals 11 billion times here since 2015. Draymond Green, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andre Iguodala. We've talked. This is probably the most we've ever spoken about Andre Iguodala in one podcast. Have tons of finals experience. They know how to handle the pressures of the media. They know how to handle the pressures of opposing fans. Swing of a game, momentum. Things of that nature. That's why they've been able to bounce back. And that's why I think the Celtics haven't been able to pull away and hold on and close them out. Closing out a team to win a championship, let alone a decisive game, is the hardest thing to do. And, Celtics just haven't been in this position, gotten this far. This is the first time that this core group has gotten this far. And they're gaining experience. It's a baptism by fire for the Boston Celtics right now. So, yeah, I think they're starting to break down. But, all of that can go by the wayside. Now, one thing that I found interesting was, after last night's game, Steve Kerr, Warriors coach Steve Kerr, was basically guaranteeing that the Warriors were going to win Game 6 in Boston. He basically said, we're going to Boston and we're going to win. And even Klay Thompson, who'd ripped the Boston Celtics fans, after Game 3, I believe it was, he even came out and said, I've never been so excited to go to Boston because he feels like they're going to close it out in 6. So maybe they're playing mind games with the Celtics. All it takes is one game. You take it one game. That's why they say you take it one game at a time. Anything can happen. But like I said, it's an education on the Celtics' part. So see how that goes. We will pause here for a brief message from the Yankee and the Brit.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Jay from Yankee and the Brit telling you to come over and check out our shows. The Yankee and the Brit Sports Talk, well beyond the arc. The Markout Podcast, Flagrant and Foul, Real Talk with Jay, and MMA Underground Weekly at YouTube/The Yankee and the Brit. Deuces.
All right, I'll make sure you check out those podcasts at all. There's some good stuff here. The group covering the NFL, MMA, and much more. So make sure you check that out and subscribe. You don't want to miss a single one of those. Well, a couple guys in this series that, there's been some interesting takes on a lot of things in this series. But one interesting take that I heard and I read that I want to get your thoughts on, Montana, are the number of potential Hall of Famers playing in this series. Now, it's unreal, right? We have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. I think we know those guys are a lock. Potentially, if the careers of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum especially continue to go traject the way that they're going, they could be potential Hall of Famers as well. So I think those are the more obvious ones. But there's a couple names that are on rosters in this series that, I was kind of scratching my head on. And there's a lot of folks that feel that these guys should be in the Hall of Fame when their careers are said and done. The aforementioned Andre Iguodala, for one, and Al Horford. Now, Montana, how do you feel about those two guys' chances of making the Hall of Fame?
Andre Iguodala has a way better chance than Al Horford. Because I'd say Andre Iguodala has been a legacy player. He's been on this Warriors legacy and on this dynasty. People forget about him before, but he was also really good when he played for the 76ers. I mean, Andre Iguodala has been a really solid player his whole career, and he has kind of had the same role his whole career, and he's done great with it. We've definitely seen him step up and make things happen, and I think that I can see him making the Hall of Fame. I think if he can, if obvious, I don't think he's played any. Has he even? I don't think he's played this series.
A little bit, very little,
played? Okay.
Very little.
See, I didn't even know if he'd played for sure because I know I saw him but talking to Wiggins in a full suit. So that game he definitely wasn't playing. But his playing days are definitely not what they were, and they're definitely probably getting numbered now. I wouldn't be shocked if they win this if he retires. I would not be shocked if he retires after this season, if they win or even if they lose. But he has been with the Warriors for so many great years, and he's been a huge part of Golden State history and just basketball history with what him and his team have accomplished. And he's a fantastic locker room presence, and he's been like that his whole career. Even when he was younger and maybe could have played a few more minutes, he was still, I think, mainly that locker room presence. And I can see him making it. Al Horford, not a chance. He could win this championship, and I still wouldn't say anything because I will say he has had moments when he's put up bigger numbers than Iggy. But Iggy has been again, he's a legacy player. And we've seen legacy players get in the Hall of Fame before, not just because of the team they played on, but a big part of it was the team they played on, the championships. We've talked about this before. The Hall of Fame, I don't always agree. It's the Basketball Hall of Fame. I don't always agree with specifically the NBA portion of it. I think we've seen some, suspect picks. But I don't think Andre Iguodala is a suspect pick if they win this series and then he retires. I can see him making it. Al Horford, though, not a chance. There's no Hall of Fame for Al. There's no spot for him there, and it's not anything against him as a player. I think he's a great player, and he's put up some good numbers and given us some good games and some great NBA moments. But pound for pound, I would pick Iggy over Horford, and I'm not even sure if I would. Iggy's a stretch in my opinion as well. I can just maybe see they win this, he retires, and then I can maybe see him in the Hall. But Al Horford, no, definitely not.
Yeah, no, number one, guys, you're watching here, keep the comments coming. I almost started cracking up when I saw Al is 137 years old. Keep the comments coming, guys. We love them. Yeah, look, there's the Hall of Fame and there's the Hall of Very Good for me. And no disrespect to either player. Al Horford all of a sudden aged another 20 years. I love it. Like I said, there's a Hall of Fame, there's a Hall of Very Good for me. And no disrespect to either one of these players. These guys have had tremendous careers, even if their careers ended today, right? Al Horford, the thing about Al Horford that folks don't realize, and not even just Al Horford, but most basketball fans, in order to get the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, it's not the NBA Hall of Fame. It is the Basketball Hall of Fame, which means guys from the international game get in, the women's game get in, and the college game get in. And people forget that Al Horford was part of those Florida Gator back-to-back championship teams in 2007, 2008, I believe it was. And I believe they're the last college basketball team to go back-to-back. So there's a shot. He might not get in as an individual, but he'll get in. There's a shot that he gets in on those back-to-back Florida Gator teams. So I think Al Horford can get into the Hall of Fame by accident. Yeah, the Basketball Hall of Fame is easier to get into than Arizona State. I agree. But yeah, I mean, if you're going off his NBA body of work, solid career. I was surprised. I forgot that he's a 5-time All-Star, an All-NBA selection one year as well. 13,000 points, about 8,000 rebounds for his career. Hall of very good, not Hall of Fame for me. Andre Iguodala, I'm not gonna say great player. He's better than good, but he's not necessarily a great player. Great talent. I'm surprised he only made one All-Star team. I believe that was his last year in Philadelphia. Could have averaged more. Great team player. A guy, absolutely a great leader on the court. Someone that you'd want to have on your team. An all-around player, can shoot from the outside, athletic, can defend. One of the better players to do that in his prime, actually. But again, for me, it's a hall of very good. He's got, I think close to 14,000 career points, the one All-Star game appearance, like I mentioned. But the one thing, and I agree with you that he's got a chance of making the Hall of Fame this way, is the fact that he's a part of 3 NBA championship teams of the Golden State Warriors. And he might very well be on a 4th NBA championship team. Now, do you get in the NBA in the Hall of Fame because you've won rings, or do you get in the Hall of Fame because you've won rings and you've contributed, right? I think both guys have a shot, but in no way are either one of them a lock for the Hall of Fame. I think we need to concentrate on the guys that are going to make the Hall of Fame for that argument.
Agreed.
Well, a guy that is a borderline Hall of Famer, LeBron James. I'm kidding. He's definitely not a borderline. He's definitely getting in first ballot. LeBron James came out recently in a couple of different interviews saying that the one team, if he can go to a different team to go play for other than the Lakers, would be the Golden State Warriors. Surprise, surprise, because the one player in the league that he wants to play with most is Steph Curry. Montana, you're already shaking your head.
This one's tough for me. This one's tough for me.
I'm not even going to ask the question. I'm just going to let you roll.
Well, it's tough for me because of a couple things. One, LeBron is a very narrative-driven guy. He's always chasing that narrative. I don't really believe that early in his career he was doing that, but he's definitely doing that now. And so, he's chasing the narrative. He's Mr. Media. He's Mr. he is a celebrity outside of basketball, and he's larger than life. He has all those. He has a couple different companies. He's all these different things that he's involved with, which I think is great. If you know LeBron James and his story, he deserves everything he's gotten. I mean, he has really, really, really made it, and he's now considered a top 5 greatest player of all time. I don't see him leaving. I do. Everyone was freaking out. I'm on a couple like Lakers, Instagram pages and fan pages. So I've left a lot of them because it's just really annoying. But the few that I have left, people are like, "Oh, he's going to leave this season." No, LeBron is, I truly believe, going to give it another shot with the Lakers, and then if it goes well, I think that he'll stay, and he'll maybe not finish his career, because we know LeBron, he's going to play till he's 50. So I don't know if he'll stay with the Lakers the rest of his career, but he'll definitely stay with them for the next few seasons if they win this, or at least make the Western Conference Finals. But if they don't make the Western Conference Finals this next season, I wouldn't blame him for wanting to leave. He went to this Lakers team to avoid having to be the person that carried, and now he's having to do it again. The only chance that they had last season was if he was dropping 30 points. That was the only chance they had. And so it would be tricky for me if he did leave, but I don't think Golden State would be the team he would go to if he does. I will say that right now. Speaking of narratives, he wants to play with Bronny. Bronny's not going to go to Golden State. Bronny's not going to get drafted by Golden State, most likely. I don't think Bronny's going to be a top 10 draft pick. I really don't. So maybe because of that, he'll fall lower in the draft and they'll look out and make that work. But I really don't think LeBron will end up in Golden State. But the narratives are really making me annoyed as a Lakers fan. I'm not a LeBron fan. I'm a Lakers fan. And I don't think that it's helping this team move forward and improve when he's out here talking about going and playing for Golden State. Lakers fans are very unforgiving. They really, really are. Most major sports team fans are really unforgiving. And another thing we have to remember is when LeBron James leaves a team, the fans hurt. Okay, it's kind of like when you get in a car accident with your friend and he's the one driving, then he leaves the scene. It hurts a little bit. So I don't think they're going to be too happy if he leaves. Which no team that he's ever left has been too happy. But especially going to Golden State of all places, that'd be a tough pill to swallow for Lakers fans. But I don't see it happening now or ever.
I mean, LeBron James wants to play for the Golden State Warriors. He wants to play for the team contending for the title. This just in, water is wet. I mean, of course he wants to go play for the Warriors. Who doesn't want to go play for the Warriors? Doesn't mean the Warriors are going to go and sign and trade for LeBron James. Absolutely not. They can't afford him. I mean, they're already going to be going into the luxury tax, which, probably going to be paying more than the GDP of a country like, I don't know. I don't want to insult any country. But anyway, there's no chance this happens. Except if the Golden State Warriors draft Bronny James. That's the only way it happens. Because, Bronny, LeBron's already said it. We've already talked about it. Even the comments are coming in that, LeBron wants to play with Bronny. He wants to father and son it just like the Griffeys did with Ken Griffey Jr. and Ken Griffey Sr. in the earlier 90s. Oklahoma City is basically trying to own all of the draft picks in the first and second round over the next 4 years. And I think OKC is the team that's banking on being able to draft Bronny James. Is Bronny James a top 10 draft pick? I don't think so. Not today. But I can see a scenario where a team reaches for him in a strictly business move to get LeBron James to join their team. Because I think LeBron James is trying to line up his contract to be a free agent in the year that Bronny James is eligible, right? Let's say Golden State they have a down year in a couple of years. Not a down year, but they're competitive, and they have the 22nd pick, we'll say. You don't think they're not going to consider drafting Bronny James to be able to bring in LeBron and sell more jerseys and exactly asses in the seats? Exactly that. Of course they will. I mean, OKC, Bronny James might be a lottery pick just for that same reason for another team. Looking at you, OKC, looking at you, Detroit Pistons, looking at you, Orlando Magic, who knows? But, and that is the only scenario where I see LeBron James actually playing for Golden State Warriors. Steph Curry came out and even said, yeah, LeBron wants to play for us. We're good. He doesn't want to play with LeBron. And the All-Star games is cool. They might have a good relationship, but he knows they don't need LeBron. They got enough firepower just all by themselves. So now you got me thinking about was it the draft? I don't know when Bronny comes out, if it's next year or the year after, but that's going to be an interesting draft class to see what team reaches to pick him.
Oh, it really will be. And again, I think what's going to end up happening, I think Bronny is going to be more than a role player, but he's not going to be LeBron. There's never going to be another LeBron.
No.
I will say, you know what I will say? If there is going to be another LeBron, it's his other son, Bryce. Have you seen how tall he is? He is as tall, almost as tall, if not taller than Bronny. And I don't think he's either a freshman or a sophomore this next season. So whatever. So yeah, I mean, he is tall, and maybe I'm exaggerating, but from what I can remember seeing him, he is tall. And I also just, for some reason, I'm kind of banking on him being that more LeBron-esque player than Bronny. I think Bronny will be great, and I think Bronny will really develop his game once he gets to the NBA. But I don't know. I think that's a very interesting what if and a very interesting wild card, because Bronny could get in the league and do amazing things, or he could get in the league and just kind of maybe be a role player. I can see it going either way. So he still has one more year of high school, though. I think his senior year is this next season. So time will tell. Time will tell with that. And, LeBron, like you said, the Warriors don't need LeBron. The Warriors would rather have younger talent that will stay than LeBron, who will maybe help you win one or two championships, but then he's probably going to be spent. I don't think LeBron has 2 championships in him. I think he has 1. Throw him on a Golden State team, they could maybe all contribute and win 2, but I think he has 1 left at best. And I don't think the Warriors are going to take a chance on that, because even though LeBron is such a legend, we've seen him get more and more injured these last few seasons too. So I'm not going to
Father
say he's
time.
yeah, it's catching up to him. Even though he's really trying to hold it back, it's catching up to him. And I think this next season we will see father time in LeBron more than we ever have. Hopefully not too much, because I've got my Lakers hopefully going back and maybe at least making the playoffs this season. But who knows? It'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah. Well, look, to be fair, Bronny James has another year of amateur status. He can have a growth spurt. He can, practice and develop and turn into a great player. I don't think he's there yet. I think he's a good talent. I don't think he's a great talent yet. But there's plenty. Time will tell, right? There's plenty of time until he gets drafted, and he's got a pretty good, someone who can coach him, and his father. I mean, I think his father did a little bit in the NBA, might know a thing or two, that'd be able to show Bronny some pointers. And don't know much about Bryce. We'll have to go back and check out the LeBron James Instagram for their videos that they post here, and maybe we'll see some basketball clips. But we shall see. Well, we're coming close to putting a bow on episode 9 here, Well Beyond the Arc, but these aren't our only projects. Montana, you want to tell us a little bit more about your other podcast?
Absolutely. So I have another podcast called The Connor and Heffernan Show. We're on Spotify, Podbean, and Amazon Music. We are currently taking a little bit of a break. I do think we might record this weekend, but I'm not entirely sure. So to be determined with that, but we will get some more episodes out eventually. And like I've said since episode 1, hopefully we'll actually be on Apple Music and YouTube. But that takes maybe more work than I had in me to do. So, I mean, it really doesn't, but you know how it goes. So yeah, so The Connor and Heffernan Show, you can find us on Spotify, Podbean, or Amazon Music.
All right. And I also have a website called thesportspageblog.com. Coming up on my 30th blog entry since the website went live on November. The 30th one will be the next one. I'll be talking a little bit about kind of what Montana and I talked about in our 2-part special, ranking the Bleacher Report or FanDuel report of the top 30 or NBA GOATs for each of the 30 NBA teams. So I'll be talking a little bit about that. So please be sure to check out the sportspageblog.com. More to come on that website as well. So, well, I'll leave you guys with this thought. I don't know if you guys saw that the fake Klay Thompson was banned for life from the Chase Center for going on the court and getting up shots a few hours before the game. How the Warriors security didn't realize that wasn't the real Klay Thompson, I have no idea, but I will leave you with this. Free fake Klay! Free fake Klay! Free fake Klay!